Good morning. That was a perfect intro. Thank you, Anurag. Certainly tech is intersecting everything all around the country, and even here in India, we're in the midst of whether you call it the third wave or industry. So we are at the place and time where tech is intersecting all of the major industries that got our economy to this point. And the future is going to be defined by those states like what's happening here where tech is the enabler going forward. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and specifically about the talent discussion, which has been so present not only locally but nationally as well. So I'm going to start off with you, Governor. When leading a state, there are a lot of competing priorities for what to care about. You've made very clear the top priority, which is the growth of Indiana's workforce size and skills, and particularly tech skills. In fact, you've called workforce development the defining issue of the decade. Why have you made this the emphasis of your administration?
Well, good morning to all. It's fairly obvious to me we find ourselves in a strong position currently right now in the state of Indiana. We're, in terms of manufacturing, we're an ag state, manufacturing state. We grow things, we make things, we ship things. Number one in terms of per capita in terms of manufacturing. But if we want to be number one in 10 or 15 years, as Anurag said, we have to adapt and evolve with the times, and that is plus tech. And so to do that, you have to have the talent, not just the pipeline, but you got to have the talent on site. People are going to invest where the talent is, or where they can get the talent to come to. And so that's kind of the two-front approach in how we're developing this ecosystem. We've checked a couple of very important boxes here in the state of Indiana because of this continuity, this momentum that we've experienced, and especially on our on the economic front. We're a very attractive place and invest. We are building out our infrastructure. Maybe you saw some of those orange cones this morning. Just ask for your patience. Please be out there doing the hard work. Want to get home tonight too. But having said that, we know that the box that we have to check is making sure that our workforce is skilled up for the jobs that are not just there right now, but that are going to be there, that are going to be created over the next month, 10 years, 15 years. So it all traces back to talent, and not really, I focus on 5 pillars to lift this state up, but talent is important to each and every one of those.
That's different, right? That's different than the economic development conversation of decades ago.
Yeah, I think people have come to the realization that economic development is workforce development, and workforce development is economic development. So it's hand in glove. It's not either or. It's both. And you can, I've once heard that it used to be the big eat the small. The big used to eat the small. Now the fast eat the slow. And so the quicker that you realize that you can scale up your business, only as fast as you can scale up the talent that will lead you to that competitive advantage, especially finding ourselves in this global marketplace, which is just flat out exciting to be centered where we are in the heart. We're just like this, beacon or this lighthouse in the middle, showing the way that it can be done, and others are watching. And so I'm proud to be a Hoosier in the sense that we're showing that with a little courage and hard work, we can lead on this front, just as we have in our agrarian roots or in our manufacturing roots.
And this has been a conversation you've been part of, not only here in the state, but also nationally. You've gotten some national press because you were asked by Ivanka Trump and also U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross to serve on the 25-person American Workforce Policy Advisory Board, which, as I understand it, recommends policies to the President's National Council for the American Worker. So what is that about? What's the role that you and Indiana can play in that national discussion?
Well, I think it's, kudos, and I'm going to pile on the praise to Ivanka for addressing this issue as the issue of the decade, and not just today. And she's extremely articulate, understands, so goes our workforce, so goes the nation. Certainly state by state, that's true. This is pulling together 25 people who are doers, action, who are give me the step-by-step list that we need to check off and have it date, stamped. It represents a couple governors, myself in Iowa, a mayor of Charlotte, in terms of the government stakeholders. It represents our redefining what higher education is really all about in the world we find ourselves in today. It represents the business community. Actually, Tom Donahue from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is on this board. It represents CEOs from around the country, representing different sectors of the economy. It represents our community college system. It represents labor. So it really does it bring everyone together that should be around the table, and then we'll present a plan. Now, in terms of, maybe why I was asked is, we have just been hyperactive, impatient, quite frankly, to take steps that have been long in the making. And so we have tried to eliminate a lot of the bureaucracy here so we can be nimble and quick. Anurag talked about how I wasn't a pest, I don't think, but I didn't let up for sure. And that's the same approach we've taken here in the state of Indiana. And if we had to ask forgiveness, we would instead of permission, so that we could get the resources to the employees and employers quicker. And that's what it's all about. And then I just made a plea to our federal partners, and it's extremely helpful to have our congressional delegation that we have, and to have this administration recognize this issue. And I simply asked, as I'll continue to do, and it'll hopefully make its way into the final report, that action list is for the federal government. I looked around, I was at a National Governors Association, I looked around the room just like this, and from California to the Midwest to the East Coast, and just recognize that all the different governors and all the different economies and all the different sectors and all the terrain, it's all different. And that's a strength. And so we can't have this one-size-fits-all approach, and I just pled with them to trust us, the states, to own it. I said here in the state of Indiana, we need to redesign our workforce development efforts, and that should start with one throat to choke. That's fairly a drastic step, but I said it should be me. Hold me accountable. But we can't have 45 different avenues that you have to go down and negotiate and navigate and figure out how to connect the dots and get the resources. And so we've redesigned that, and I asked the same of the federal government to trust us to own it and to run it. And then to prove it, we measure everything around here. And if it doesn't work, we should quit doing it. And if it does work, we should do more of it. And the funding can follow those programs that work. And I think what's lost in this conversation, certainly with the state, oftentimes we make this mistake with our school system, education and training, that whole system with our federal partners, is we have to share it. We have to advertise it. We can't just do something in the legislature, check that box, and then move on to the next thing. We have to make sure the guy on the street that you passed coming into work today knows that those programs or options are both available and accessible.
I saw that live. We were downstairs briefing right before this, and one of the Salesforce employees from Washington, D.C. introduced herself and said she was from D.C. and that this was her first time in Indianapolis, and the governor's first response was, "Are you going to stay?"
We want to grow. We want to grow, just like Salesforce, just like Infosys, just like
I'm going to turn to Rick here in just one second, but you talked about measuring, and I'm going to go off script a little bit and ask, you sent a fleet of programs out that were all workforce related, and as you measure those, what's working? What are you seeing that's getting a lot of traction?
Well, we're skilling up from the bottom up, and that's, the goal was to move more of the have-nots into the have category, and that means getting them access to programs that will do just that, skill them up. And so we developed, there's many different programs, but one of which is called Next Level Jobs, nextleveljobs.org, and it's getting financial resources and getting you connected to those skill sets that are in high demand. They're high wage, high value careers. And we focused on 5 sectors, IT being one of them, surprise, surprise, because again, it's attached and complements every sector we've got. But that's getting folks into Ivy Tech or Vincennes University or one of our Work One programs. That's getting funding to employers to be able, if you have a training program here or in Vincennes, Indiana, that's working, we want to know what that is, and we want to support that so that you can grow. And that's when I talked about getting rid of the bureaucracy, that's getting in this case funding to those sources. But this is it starts pre-K, K through 12, and then beyond, and it's making sure that we've got earn and learn programs, apprenticeships, internships, externships. It's I just got back from an overseas economic development trip, and in Germany we talked about GAP, the German-American Partnership Program, that's taking high school students from Batesville, Indiana, and sending them to Germany, and German students and sending them to Batesville. These are the kind of cultural exchanges of which someone that lives in Ripley County can understand that, in this case, Hillenbrand, or you can name a bunch of other global companies in that region. There are opportunities to grow here and there and back and forth, and so really the future is wide open, but you've got to have a menu. It's like, I hate to say this, but it's like, I say it a lot, walking into McDonald's and seeing this menu. What is it that you need? And you might
Purely hypothetical, right?
Purely hypothetical, yeah, that I'm told this is what happens. But you need to be able to personalize your order. And that's what the state of Indiana, that's partly what our role is to make sure that the public policy reflects this growth environment for business, to provide that opportunity for folks to determine what their own destiny is going to be.
Thank you. Thanks for your leadership nationally too. The program that the governor is referencing is called the Extern Program, and it is, for those of you that are new to this region, we have one of the most preeminent talent internship programs in the country, where for this summer, for 150 spots, where we serve up job opportunities, free housing, we lease 3 apartment buildings here downtown at IUPUI for them all to live in together, and then we provide an amazing summer experience for them. For those 150 spots, we had over 1,800 applicants, over 1,600 of them going into software engineering, data science, cybersecurity, IT. And the really cool thing is when they come, and they're from 43 home states, almost every state in the country, 120 different universities. This phenomenon Anurag talked about, where people either have outdated or just lack of awareness of what's going on here. The reality of it is, though only 19% of them who come into the program said that they were likely to live and work here after graduation, after the program, 73% say that they are. And so it's these kinds of programs that are going to be the turning point to enable the companies here to thrive. And we're putting that talent to work. That's one of the TechPoint talent programs. We're putting that talent to work in about 100 different companies. So it's this kind of work layered on top of the work that Salesforce is doing and the work that Infosys is doing and other companies to pipeline and talent that we think is going to be the difference maker. And with that, Rick, I want to turn it to you. I have been... The talent conversation gets painted with a really broad brush. A lot of times. There are a lot of different ways that talent makes its way into companies and strategies that the companies have to employ in order to be able to get the talent that they need. If you think about the 3 big buckets, you've got the feeder from the pipeline from the education system, you have importing talent from other places, you have training talent. And as I've gotten to know Infosys over the course of the past couple of years, even being able to see your training facility in India, which is remarkable. It's like a university for one company. Right. 15,000 people can be trained concurrently. I've been amazed at how Infosys does all 3. Will you speak to that and what you're doing across the globe, and especially here on all 3 of those fronts? Touch on that. The university programs, the training, and also the importing of talent that I've heard you talk about as well.
Yeah, so globally, Infosys has about 1,250 clients. Our global reach, and one of the questions that we get asked by clients all the time isn't what you would think it would be. It's not what talent do you have on the shelf that I can consume. Last year, you probably heard the stat, 2.4 million STEM-related jobs went unfilled in 2018. If you stack up other industries with that, construction, manufacturing, food services, retail, et cetera, it becomes 3x that problem. It's over 6 million unfilled jobs. Yeah. And what's unique about Infosys is we play in all of those industries. And so the question we get asked by our clients is, what are we doing to address the workforce talent issue? Like, how are we corporately committed to this, this issue, especially here in America? And I can tell you that we're 1,000% committed towards lifelong learning and education. So, and I'll break it down a little bit. We've either publicly announced or inaugurated 6 innovation and technology hubs across the United States, and it started with our flagship office here in Indianapolis, which is right next door. So we're incredibly happy to be neighbors with Salesforce. Within each of those technology hubs, we have a university anchor partner, as well as community college partners. And then, so for Indianapolis, for instance, ours is Purdue and it's Ivy Tech. That does a few things. One is we influence their curriculum. From a technology standpoint, they influence our curriculum. It also provides opportunity for research and development. So we're bringing the brain trust as local as we can in the markets that we serve. And the other component of that is pipeline development. So every new campus hire that we hire goes through 8 to 12 weeks of deep, immersive, instructor-led training in our classrooms here in the United States in each one of these hubs. The reason why we distribute it is because we do not have a central location for a corporate university or corporate campus like Mysore. But the good news is, in November of 2018, we broke ground on what will be over a 70-acre campus right here in Indianapolis. It will be initially a 250-seat training facility, so we'll train our own employees in that facility nationally, as well as our clients. So it will be a little bit of a training as a service model for them as well. And that's where we'll bring in the K through 12s, we'll bring in the universities, we'll bring in the tech high schools, the alternative high schools, because the problem is beyond STEM. We have to look beyond STEM, liberal arts, and we have to look beyond white collar in terms of being able to reskill, refactor, retool the workforce to be able to address technology needs. A lot of clients are starting to rebrand themselves as, we're no longer make whatever food that's on the shelf or the engine that sits in the car. We are a technology company that happens to make fill in the blank. And more is moving towards that. And so it's an urgent issue. I think everyone is experiencing it at a state level, at an employment level. The high schools and the colleges are really trying to rethink how to decentralize and democratize education and make it available to everyone. But I'm proud to say, as Infosys, we as part of our core strategy, we believe in lifelong learning, and that the linear relationship between education and employment is broken. It no longer serves the market the way that we need it to. So we're trying to do our best to create structured partnerships with government, structured partnerships with universities and schools, and structured partnerships with our clients, and bring all that to bear. And instead of being competitive with one another, really trying to uplift the markets in which we operate and serve today.
Talk about the importing as well. This is something that surprised me, is just how much, particularly to get the ball rolling here, you've actually brought in talent from, you've crossed the 500 mark as far as the number of employees that you've staffed here in the office here just in the last, 2 years?
Less than that.
Less than that?
Yeah, about a year. So when you're looking for employment and you hear the words you're hired, you're really excited to hear those words. But I can tell you, it's just as exciting to say them. I've said it over 500 times. We've hired over 500 people in Infosys in the last year. And about 40% are actually homegrown Hoosiers. Those are people who were born in Indiana, by the way. The balance of that, we've actually imported talent from over 35 other home states. That's 500. We're on our path to get to 3,000, which was our original jobs commitment that we made in 2018. And people ask me, do you think you can get to 3,000? And I'll share this one story. I won't mention his name. We hired an individual from Hawaii. We're his first technology job out of undergrad. He moved from Hawaii to live in Indiana. If I can convince him to do that, I can get to 3,000 people.
Well done. Well
I think
done.
the Infosys 500 has a nice ring to it right now.
You're right. It's almost May.
Yeah, that's right.
Governor, as you are interacting with colleagues leading states across the country, and you just come back from an international trip, what's your sense of where Indiana's competitive edge lies? Where's our opportunity, and where do you think we should be aimed in order to go capture it?
This is our opportunity. I mean, you can look at it as a challenge or an opportunity, and out of big challenges come big opportunities. And if we get this right, and we're moving in the right direction, and we're scaling up the opportunities, stay with the Indy 500 theme, we'll remain in the pole position in some respects, and we'll create more separation between us and the 49 states and District of Columbia. But the only way we'll do that is to remain competitive on each and every front. And Rick just pointed out, there's kind of a three-legged stool. It's business, government, and our education/training. That actually blurs that education and training system. And you mentioned I always refer to them as new collar jobs, not white or blue, because it really has kind of it's blurred. Mm-hmm. And so there's a new expectation. That's why I say we're redefining what higher education is. But when it comes down to going overseas and pitching the state of Indiana, what our competitive edge is, in addition to first and foremost having a strong economy, an attractive place to invest, having the infrastructure to connect, the public policy that complements that, getting more direct, nonstop flights to the global marketplace, making sure our curriculum matches the needs of the private sector. Our role as the state, and Bruce here with the Department of Ag, Kettler, knows this all too very well, it is oftentimes you're judged at how fast you are able to act as a government, as an entity. And so can you get our Indiana Environmental Department, Environmental Management, IDEM, has a 0% permit backlog. That really does stand out, acting at the speed of business or faster. Mm-hmm. One thing I've told Anurag is I never want you to have a question of me, right? I don't want you waiting on me or our administration. And so that speed of which we're able to act responsibly is critically important. And I would also say this, and this is something that I think, Rick, you could confirm this, is how the state and local governments act in unison or harmoniously. Oftentimes that is what we hear from others is a roadblock or a barrier. That collaboration is key, and so it's key to have the business community, the state and federal government working together and collaborating. But those are often our competitive edge because of the strong environment.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that just real quick. What I found, and we have to sell Infosys to our potential new hires as much as we have to sell the state of Indiana. And so we spend about half our time on the phone talking about all the amenities and all the accessibility to different events, entertainment, culturally. We talk about cost of living, we talk about the coolness factor and the convenience of being able to commute in and out of the city. So yeah, I think that's part and parcel to what you're saying. Yeah.
What do you think the competitive edge is when you think about, you've seen Infosys offices in other places around the country, other places around the world. You juxtapose that to the opportunity here in Indiana. You're a native Hoosier as well. Where do you think the opportunities lie? Where does our competitive edge stand?
Well, a little bit of what I just said before. I think there is a coolness factor. I'm a little bit jaded. I've only lived in Indiana, but I've traveled the globe in the course of my job, and I've always made it back home. It is convenient in the cost of living for sure, but beyond the 8 hours that we have the employee in our workspace. There's only so much we can do around compensation and benefits and flexible work arrangements. It's the other 16 hours that they don't spend under our roof, of how we get them socially engaged, how do we get them involved in volunteering in the community. And so we have to bring all of those, what I really think are assets to the state, to the table, and be able to say, hey, this is why it's different to live here versus, let's say, in San Francisco. To make $100,000 in the city here, you would have to make about $267,000 to have the same quality of life in San Francisco. So we have to think about not just competing nationally for these jobs, but also globally. We operate in multiple countries, and so we import talent as best we can in America from all over the world. So we think about it at a national level, we think about it at a global level, and it's a bit of a talent war, to be honest.
When we, it's for the last couple of years, you could look at the front of any major newspaper and you could see two storylines that seemed in juxtaposition to each other. One was, you could hear you could see the stories about the major tech hubs, the traditional tech hubs, and then you could also see the story next to it talking about those same places and the levels of gentrification, the levels of poverty challenges, and the levels of cost and congestion issues. I think that about a year ago, LinkedIn and Zillow announced a study that they did jointly, and I think they tried to find the middle ground between it. It was called America's Sweet Spots, the places where job opportunity and housing affordability intersect. And it really tried to reconcile those two differences. And the really interesting thing was Indianapolis was number one in that ranking, and I think speaks to what has historically been this very myopic focus on the places where tech was happening or where job growth was happening. But then the pendulum swung back the other direction, and it was about, well, where can people actually live and have the lifestyle that they want? And now the world's in a place of trying to find the middle ground.
It turns out that time and space has a high value. Right, and having options. And so when I always say we offer it all, you get to determine in Indiana if you want to live in an urban area or suburban area or a rural area. And by the way, what we're fixing is you're able to now connect with, we got the #1 rated airport in North America for the last 7 straight years. So you can connect anywhere you want, including marketplaces or for leisure or travel. And we're bringing in this coolness factor, community by community by community, and we're investing in that. Regional Cities Initiative is just one example, but all the kind of organic work that's happening at the ground level throughout the state of Indiana. So when you talk about, okay, you did a Super Bowl, now what? And then it's the NBA All-Star Game, and it's the National College Football Championship, and hosting, and on and on and on, and we just do it year. Host the biggest sporting event in the world. Yeah. So wherever I go, I'm talking about the Indy 500 maybe first, and then I get to maybe Larry Bird, and then I get to all the options that are available for an entity, organization, or business to grow, and that is what it's about. You're either growing or dying. And so we want to continue to evolve, and that ecosystem has to evolve around those pursuits.
We've got a few minutes left. Let's drill just a notch deeper on specific skills. So you're interacting with industries and businesses all around the country. You're interacting with businesses all around the state and around the country as well. What are you hearing in the way of skills or workforce needs that you're finding that are trends across those different industries or across those different geographies?
Well, I'll start. The most pervasive kind of way that we've been trying to really articulate in the marketplace is a lot of our clients today are wanting us to think about their end customer. So we're a services organization. We provide technology services and consulting. We sell brain power by the hour. And so it's not just a B2B model for us anymore, it's really B2B2C. We have to be thinking about our client's customer just as much as we think about our own clients. Because this personalized service, as you were talking about, that it needs to be tailored and unique, and we're sort of in this me economy. It's about me and what I want and when I want it. That freaks our clients out, because that means a whole technology engine needs to be at play in terms of data. So winning that customer is really the war, And the weapons in that war are all the things I think we've heard about: cloud, analytics, mobile, security, social, and all the code that sort of sits underneath that to enable it. Whether it be software talking to machines, whether it be hardware talking to hardware, whether that be people interacting with software in an augmented intelligence way or an artificial intelligence way. It's beyond base technology skills and fundamentals like Java and .NET, not to get really technical, but they're looking for sophistication and being able to, think critically about the problem, be able to come up with new solutions, rapidly deploy them, and get return on investment right away.
Governor, how about you?
Well, it's a long list, and this is another example of not either one or the other. And it is, as Rick says, I always talk about it now more than ever, it is about the brain, not the biceps. Like, you're not just clocking in, this is about the value you bring. So you have to be skilled up, you have to have that proficiency. STEM, certainly, more, we need to have a more robust push, computer science in all of our schools, soft skills. It's all, ingredients of this recipe that works, because it is lifelong. It's not, we can no longer find ourselves in every stage of the chain blaming the person before you. So I used to get from businesses, they would say, you got to send us a better product to the universities. And then the universities say, you got to send us a better product to the schools. And the schools would say to the parents, you got to send us a better product. This is quit driving by each other. Get involved. Same is true for the state of Indiana. Take responsibility for this. So all of our agencies have to look at this holistically. So it's not just, one thing where we say, oh, if we just have better soft skills, we'll just solve the problem. It is there are new skills that are into high demand. Obviously, coding you mentioned. I often talk about coding being the new Latin. It's a language in demand, and I mean that with all due. I went to a liberal arts school. I had to take Latin, or actually Latin took me at Hanover. But I mean, you can do both, and they're in high demand. Liberal arts schools are in high demand for Infosys. And so we need to recognize that, but tailor those curriculums so that they're meeting the regional demands. And that's what another thing that we as a state have tried to do is regionalize our approach, getting those folks to the table, and then making sure that everyone knows what the game plan is.
Awesome. I'm going to ask one last question to both of you, and that's what's the next big thing you're excited about? So I'll give you a second to think about it. One of the things that, Rick, given the nature of your work, you naturally you skew toward tech-skilled talent, right? And I think that one of the things we have to demystify, we have to simultaneously increase the urgency that coding and other tech skills are critically important, and they need to be not just cordoned off to one subset of the population, but it needs to be something that is more, that permeates the entirety of our education system, the entirety of our workforce. However, it is also true that a huge portion of the jobs in tech are not just tech jobs, not just tech-skilled jobs. One resource that I'll spotlight to any of you that are interested, we just launched a product called Jobs in Tech 101 that's goal is to demystify that. So we've broken out the 10 major occupation groups in tech, and it ranges from product development to sales and marketing, HR, finance, accounting. And so on the TechPoint website, you can see that. And it's meant to be a career navigation tool for students and for career changers that can feel as if this whole journey into tech is a bridge too far because they didn't come from the background or from the skills development in order to be able to get into tech. And in a lot of cases, that's just not true. So with that, I'm going to turn back to, as you've both had a little bit of opportunity to think. You've got some major milestones out in front of you. What's the major milestone that you're excited about that's out in front of you right now?
So we've hired over 500 to date. We're in the One America Tower. We're expanding 3 additional floors, so we'll have 87,000 square feet in that tower. And they've already started demo. We have our furniture on order. The day that fills up with another 500 employees, and I walk into work that day, and I see 1,000 Infosys backpacks on backs getting up the elevator bank. will be an exceptional milestone. I was employee number 1 for Infosys in Indianapolis. And when I first started, because it needed to be a startup in the most rawest form, I was sitting on the floor, because we had no furniture, next to a wireless router on a laptop that functioned half the time. And I called my boss and I said, I think I made a mistake. I don't know what I'm doing here. I've not been treated like this at any other company. He said, welcome to the startup, and hung up the phone. Never returned my call. I called, left voicemails, and I'm so freaking out. And then he says, we need you to figure it out because you're from Indiana. You know the state best. Start your relationship, start recruiting, get it to work. So yeah, it's personal pride. I've put a lot at stake for us in the firm to be able to make these investments. They haven't stopped. We're investing over $35 million in the campus to have a 125,000 square foot building there. So that'll be milestone number 2 for us next year. And then long term, and I'll be quick, when there's 3,000 of us here and we're all involved in the community and being good stewards of our talents and our dollars and really helping transform the city, that's milestone number 3 for us.
That's awesome. Governor, we'll close with you.
Well, the thing I'm most excited about is Purdue University winning the national championship in March Madness over Duke, 87-85. You heard it here. Hammer down. No, I think the thing I'm most excited about is to continue to see us scale up in terms of this seamless transition between our school system, K through 12, our colleges and universities, publics and privates, our flagships, and to know that we're already well on our way. Ivy Tech, is inside Subaru, and Vincennes, Indiana is inside Toyota and Fiat Chrysler, and so we're starting. This truly is a seamless transition. Now we got to scale that up into the mom and pop shops, all over the state of Indiana, and that they rely on Plus Tech too, or if not, at their own peril. And so we're kind of a concierge, really, we're connecting folks, and that is happening, and that will truly, because I see the competition kind of waiting and watching and wondering, and we're creating and innovating into new places and spaces like never before. And when you're, hanging out with companies like Salesforce and Infosys, who are really taking a lead, who are the real, explorers in this new frontier, it's an exciting ride.
That's great. With that, we'll close. Please help me give thanks to our panelists.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.